Last time you felt this disappointed or the end of the Mavs season was this big of a letdown was when?
Oh, probably the year after they won the championship and they didn't make the playoffs. And, the team was not allowed to return intact and to make another run at it. The lockout and the CBA changed that year, forced Mark Cuban to, in his mind, do things that, would not allow that to happen. And then they didn't make the playoffs. So, and, Dirk wasn't hurt that year, but had sort of begun to grind down a little bit. So that was not good. And then, for old timers like me, you can go back to the year after the Mavericks got to the Western Conference Finals in 1988. And the following year, they traded Mark Aguirre and they traded Detlef Schrempf, and they wound up going, ironically enough, 38-44 and missing the playoffs.
Did you agree with the strategy? If you were in the Mavs front office, would you have signed off on the tank or figure out any way to try to make it into the play-in?
Look, in my opinion, I'm one who always believes in running out every ground ball because you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I understand the theory behind the decision, but to me, I just always believe that the season is 82 games and you play 82 games. But there are those who obviously believe in the whole concept of game theory and whatever little chance you have to move into the top four, that you ought to be able to take advantage of it. I happen to, I'm one who really likes how Luka Doncic plays and how Kyrie Irving plays, and I would like to have seen, every last opportunity to exhaust that possibility before the season ended. But again, I understand what they did. And I think everybody should understand what they did. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to agree with it. And certainly from a fan standpoint, when you're paying NBA prices and you're not getting a true NBA product, that's something that is, that I think for many is very hard to swallow.
Where did this experiment go wrong?
I don't know that with the Kyrie and Luka.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily went wrong. They're both great. I mean, they produce 60 points a game. I mean, it's pretty hard to say that it went wrong. I mean, I think maybe there could have been some more actions that were run as opposed to basically when one had the ball, the other was kind of off on the wing or in the corner. But still, I mean, their offensive rating as a team was certainly good enough. The issue is defense. The issue, and neither one of those guys are great defenders. Although, if you go back to the last weekend of the season and you watch Luka especially in the second halves of the Atlanta and the Miami games, and even in the Sacramento game, it's in him to do it. So I think that's the thing that may be, a little harder for many to swallow is that it's in him. We saw it in the first half of the season this year where he was a far more engaged defender. But overall, the team is not big enough. They're not physical enough. They don't rebound the ball well enough. I mean, they were historically terrible rebounding the ball. And those are the issues that really have to be addressed. I mean, beyond the obvious of Kyrie signing and coming back, but I mean, they've just got to get bigger and stronger if they're really going to seriously compete.
Talking with the voice of the Mavericks here, Chuck Cooperstein on Shan and RJ on 105 through the Fan. Coop, when you look at Luka Doncic's obvious frustration over the final month of the season or so, at what point do you think or do you think the Mavericks are looking at this as, hey, we've got to be careful that frustration doesn't become potential resentment or discontent and a desire to find his career path somewhere else? Do you think that's something that the Mavericks are actively kind of cognizant of we've got to do something to make sure that he's happy here?
Yeah, in my opinion, it has to be. This is the life in the NBA where star players pretty much rule the roost. They can determine, where they play and what the team that presently has them have to do in order to keep them happy. And I think, what they did in acquiring Kyrie, which I think Luka was, from what I can tell and what I've what's been published in the in the media has been very. He was very much in favor of it happening, and obviously Jason Kidd was too. I mean, you hear just openly how much Jason Kidd admires Kyrie Irving and what he can mean to the team. So, you always have to be cognizant of your star player and your star player's desires, if indeed you want to keep said star player on your team long term.
What were your impressions of Kyrie, and do you think that they should re-sign him for whatever money it would take?
As a player, he is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he's one of those guys, and I think it's probably true with a lot of guys in the NBA. We see them as broadcasters, especially when they played on the other side, and you only see them twice a year at most. You don't get the full experience. But when you do see him play every day, you realize just how brilliant he is and how much of a wizard he is with the ball in his hands and just what he can do and the efficiency with which he plays with. From that standpoint, look, I have no problem with Kyrie and Luka playing together. I think we saw the evidence of explosiveness that both of them are capable with playing together. I mean, again, like I said earlier, can you do a few more things to tweak it offensively to make it even better? I'm sure you can, and I'm sure the coaching staff will look at stuff like that. It's what they do in the off season. And then as far as the money is concerned, Kyrie is probably going to have to create a market for himself in order to get the number that he is looking for. I mean, I think that the Mavericks know that they have to keep him. To not keep him, given what they surrendered in the trade, would be really tough to swallow. But again, I don't know that they necessarily have to overpay to keep him. But I mean, I think that maybe they're going to they'll probably wind up paying maybe a little more than they want, just because that's the nature of the NBA. I mean, you want to pay as little as you can, but at the same time, that you probably have to pay a little more than you want, in order to make sure that you have what you want.
Is Luka a difficult player to play with, like stylistic?
I mean, that question's been brought up a lot. I mean, on some level, I guess it could be, just because, you are waiting for him to create something, and inevitably he will create something, and then it is on you to make sure that you are in the correct position to convert off of what he has created. That can be difficult for some. I mean, I think, in some cases, if you were running, say, a Golden State style or Sacramento style passing game, old school passing game where everybody touches the ball, that it'd be easier. But I don't know that it's difficult, if only because the shots that he's going to create for you are absolutely fantastic shots. Yeah. And it's on you to be able to knock those down. And certainly, look, the Mavericks, the last 2 months of the season, they were, I think, wound up second in the NBA in three-point shooting on the highest volume. They were like right at a little over 39%. Only the Clippers were better. So again, what he creates for players is really, really good. For some, it may not be the optimum, but it obviously works. I mean, again, offense is not the issue with this team. And, playing with Luka or Kyrie, and what they're able to do on the offensive end is not the issue. They've just got to be able to stay in front of people, switch if they have to, and then when the ball goes up, grab rebounds. At one point late in the season, the Mavericks were allowing like 1.6 points per offensive rebound, and they were giving up about like 12 offensive rebounds per game. And that is absolutely unsustainable, as it turned out.
Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavs, here on Shan, RJ, and Bobby via the Diamond Factory hotline. Chuck, Jason Kidd got roasted by fans throughout the entire season. What do you think are fair criticisms of Jason for this year's coaching job?
to me, I know people don't like rotations. A lot of times, and it's the stuff that I read that fans were unhappy with. They didn't like the rotations that he used. I know there was a lot of criticism of him not starting Christian Wood and playing him 30 minutes and what have you. But you got to understand that these coaches see the players every day. And see them under, off-court circumstances, on-court circumstances, and make their, make their decisions accordingly. To me, Jason Kidd was the same coach this year that he was last year, and nobody was worried about him as a coach last year, right?
Yeah.
So I think losing the bigger issues were internal issues. Losing Brunson was huge because not only did he know how to play off of Luka, which again, you're talking about, is Luka hard to play with? When you have guys that know how to play with your superstar and be productive with him, and then also when he sits out the 15 games that he's going to sit out and can up his game and average 22 points a game, well, I mean that's a pretty hard loss to overcome, and just the vibe that he created. Where just for instance, like that back and forth that those two guys had when the Cowboys and Eagles were playing, right, and the jerseys that they had to wear and the bets that they were making, even though they were now with different teams. I mean, it's that type of thing that can carry you through a long season. I think their locker room was different. And I think that was kind of hard to overcome. And obviously the lack of size was very much a factor. And again, I know people criticize Jason for the rotations. If there's anything, maybe there can be a believe it or not, this is on the offensive end. I mean, this is maybe a more diversification of the offense. To where Luka doesn't always have it and create it. That you can create a little more movement. As opposed to necessarily just the ball handler driving into the lane and forcing a convergence, and then he kicks the ball out and you shoot a three. But again, it was really pretty effective. So, it's kind of hard to argue, but I guess if there was going to be a criticism or just a concern moving forward, maybe that would be, the defensive philosophies are the same. And they just were not executed as well. And I don't know that if personnel based, if that problem was personnel based. I don't know if that's the case. I do know they were the 7th ranked defense in the league last year, and they were 23rd this year. And so and with the philosophy being the same. So you tell me.
You got a hot take or two for the NBA playoffs, a team you absolutely love? Any predictions, any upsets, any NBA champion? Give us the Chuck Cooperstein playoff preview.
I have no idea what's going to happen in the West. I know a lot of people really want to go on Golden State, but I can't wait to see that series with the Kings. I think that's just going to be incredible drama, great drama. I'm fascinated by the Lakers, because the Lakers did reshape their team with those trades at the deadline, and they went 16-7 post All-Star break, and they're long and they're guarding people. And if Anthony Davis is healthy, they're going to be a really, really difficult out. I can see wildness in the first round of the NBA on the Western side, just because the whole West has been wild all year. In the East, I think it's pretty much what the standings will tell you that it is, although I think that the Knicks and Cleveland could be a really fun series. I think Milwaukee's the best team. And I guess the Philly-Boston second-round series is going to be one to watch, because there's just a ton of pressure on Philadelphia to get to the conference finals. I mean, they've not been to the conference finals since Allen Iverson put them into the NBA finals in 2001. And obviously, I think Joel Embiid is going to win the MVP, and thus there is even more pressure on him and James Harden and Daryl Morey and that team, Doc Rivers, to get to the conference finals, because if they don't, I think you could see some pretty significant change there too.
I am fascinated at the future for Anthony Richardson, your guy at Florida. I think he could be the biggest boom and the biggest bust of this entire draft? What did you see from him?
It's very clear to me, having watched all 12 Florida games last year, and because I did not watch the bowl game, I refused to watch that thing. That was I was not going there. Having watched all 12 games in the regular season, that NFL scouts decided to watch one game. They watched the Utah game, the first game of the year, where he looked like a better version of Cam Newton. I mean, it was incredible what he did. And he does have incredible physical gifts. But our good friend Rick Gosselin, who knows more about the history of the NFL draft and indeed how NFL drafts ultimately fail or succeed, will always tell you that if he's going to take a quarterback, he wants quarterbacks that have actually had snaps. And Anthony Richardson has had precious few snaps. I don't blame him for leaving if he's going to be a top 5 or maybe even the number 1 pick by Carolina. But I'm not the team that's taken him. I mean, I'm not even close to taking the team that's taken him. I mean, he's inaccurate. He played in only one side of the field, doesn't read the field as far as, again, I can tell. He's a 2-year at least NFL developmental project, and you can't have that with a top 5 pick in the draft.
Chuck Cooperstein, Diamond Factory Hotline. Thank you so much as always, and enjoy a little extra vacation time. Yeah. Well deserved. Hopefully not again for next year.
Yes, I'd like vacation to start about 6 weeks later next year at least. That would be much better.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, guys.